You're watching Capitol View, Sunday morning talk focused on the political scene in Arkansas.
Our first guest today is Senator Bart Hester. He is the Senate President Pro Tem. Good to see you again.
Thanks for having me today.
Thanks for being here. Last time you were on, you made quite a stir with some jail bed space. We'll see if you can compete with that today and hang with it. So, week 6 is in the books in the state legislature. What do you think is the most significant piece of legislation that you guys have passed in a month and a half?
Well, no, that's a great question, and it certainly has felt like it's been going slowly. But we've really been focused. We've got so many new members on getting things going. We've been talking through this education reform and the criminal justice reform. We've been spending a lot of time, effort, and energy on that. I think we've got a 6-week buildup, and we're about to start performing.
There's about to be an explosion, I think,
right.
of legislative activity up there. I agree with you on that. I mean, you know much better than me, but I've been watching, and I agree with that. All right, this past week, Governor Sanders says she wants to put a work requirement on Medicaid expansion recipients. We've done this before, but she's got a different take on this. I've got a political question for you on it. Does this make it easier to get to 75% in terms of support among a heavily Republican legislature for a program that has struggled to get to 75% before?
I think clearly it does make it easier to 75%. I don't think we're going to have trouble getting it done this time, particularly with the work requirement. It's not too much of an effort to ask that people are trying to work if they're going to get government health care.
You voted against it before. You go vote for it this time?
I have voted against it in the past. Look, when you're trying to stop a government program from getting implemented, that was the plan. But look, it's implemented. It's rolling. Not funding something at this point is a much bigger discussion, not an afterthought for sure.
It's definitely implemented. I mean, I think we're about 10 years into this thing now. All right, on education, it has been front and center this session. As you said, there's been a lot of things happening behind the scenes, a lot of conversations, a lot of work has gone into getting this omnibus bill put together. The governor has pegged the cost at around $300 million. I think that's an optimistic low number. What do you think it's going to cost?
Well, you know, we're continuing to talk about these, and you have to make assumptions when you're going to make a bill this big. You can't just budget that every single potential possible kid is going to take this, because we know that's not the case.
Right.
You look across the country and it's not. So $300 million is a good number based off some very good assumptions, and we feel comfortable with it.
When you throw in the teacher salaries and some of the other classified school staff pay raises that are going to be in there, reading, literacy tutors, more pre-K investment, I mean, the number can get higher. If it goes to something significantly higher than $300 million, do you think that the program will scale back some, or do you think you guys will work to find the additional money to fund it?
I think we would work to find the money. We're just committed, right? You have to say, as a legislature, are we committed to our teachers and our students? And the answer is yes. All 135 of us are committed to teachers and students. So if it costs a little bit more money, we're going to find it. And that's all students. That's students that are in urban, students in rural, students in successful schools and not. We're committed to them. We're going to find the money to do this right.
All right. Sentencing reform probably comes right after that. Give me a little bit of a lay of the land here. The education bill gets filed. It runs in the Senate first. Is that the plan?
The current plan is to run in the Senate first. That's right.
All right. So it breezes through the Senate because there'll probably be about like 29 sponsors on it that would be all Republican.
It'll be very close. Very close.
All right. So it gets headed to the House. Is that when the sentencing reform package drops?
We'll continue to talk about that. We do not want to mess up the education plan with the next fight. If things are going pretty well, we might drop the bill, or at least parts of it. I think you'll hear some about that tomorrow or Friday. But anyway, the plan certainly is to make sure the education bills, first things first, that's handled. Then we'll move right into criminal justice and sentencing reform.
Sentencing reform, Representative Gazaway and Senator Gilmore have both told me on the record that this is going to be a package of bills. It is too difficult to do in some sort of omnibus fashion. So do you think it comes all as one package, or do you think it comes in like we're going to drop some bills here, we're going to put some more bills out in a couple of days or weeks, or how do you think that's going to kind of play out?
I think it will certainly come as a package, but they all won't be on the same day.
Gotcha.
But they'll do a few more and a few more. I think they'll talk more about that. I believe they will at the press conference on Friday. But it's not going to be an omnibus bill. It's not going to be all at one time. But it will be in concession, and it'll be all certainly understood that it's all a package working together.
It too also has to have a fiscal impact study on it, which is going to be a bear, I think. Let's just start with prisons first. When you were on this show a few months ago, you said 3,000 prison beds, not 1,000, not 1,500, 3,000, Roby. Attorney General Tim Griffin's upped you to 5,000. What do you think is going to be the number of prison beds you're going to shoot for?
I think it's going to be closer to that 3,000 number, maybe a little less, maybe a little more, but it's going to be right in that. We know that we've got almost 2,000 state prisoners backed up in our county jails. So to do something at 2,000, I think it's just irresponsible. You didn't really fix much of a problem. We've got to have more space. Well, when somebody is sentenced, they don't need to be going back to our county jails. They need to go back there and immediately get sent to our prisons.
What's the price tag, do you think? But what are you kind of playing with ballpark figures? You have to have at least started estimating what that's going to cost, the whole package.
Well, sure. It depends. Everything, once we make the final decisions what we're going to do, but it's going to be another big number again. I mean, it's going to be, if you're just talking about building the actual prisons as well, I mean, we could be talking about between one-time capital expenses and ongoing costs up to half a billion dollars. But the good news is the state of Arkansas has money. The number one priority is safety, and we're going to spend it on that.
You're going to take it out of the surplus funds or some of the reserve funds that are out there?
Well, hey, we'll let Senator Dismang and Senator Hickey kind of work some of that out, but I do suspect we will use some of the surplus funds for one-time capital needs like a prison.
All right, but you will have some ongoing prison needs as well, and that'll have to come out of recurring revenue. Do you have any estimate of what you think that's going to cost? Because if you're looking at $300 million on education, which I think it's going to be higher than that, and you're looking at $500 million of one-time money, and then you got to get the operational money for some of this longer sentencing as well as prison operations. I mean, are we at $1 billion? Are we at three-quarters of a billion?
Certainly not $1 billion in increased spending. What we know is if we don't spend the money from the state, every individual is having to spend it themselves. When somebody goes through and they break the side glass on their car, steal something out, or they just open it up and steal things out, the citizens of Arkansas are paying this price every day right now, and we've got to do a better job of providing them protections. When you don't have misdemeanor justice in Arkansas, it's unfair to people that are working and just trying to make ends meet. So we're paying the cost one way or the other. We ought to be paying it, keeping these bad operators locked up. We got to have misdemeanor justice in Arkansas, and we got to keep violent repeat offenders locked up.
All right, so it's not as big as $750 million. It'll be smaller than that. But is there room to do that new spending and still do something significant with tax cuts, or do you think tax cuts come in the form of some sort of trigger, like if state revenues hit this certain level, then we will lower the income tax rate further?
Well, I think it is not by accident that we chose to do ed reform, criminal justice reform, then tax cuts. We're going to take care of the first two things, and then we're going to look at what's left and how responsible we can be with those cuts, and however much money of the surplus that we have to spend to make sure 1 and 2 went right, to move on to tax cuts. Look, the governor campaigned for 2 years that she was going to do those three things. The legislature, many of us committed to doing those three things and campaigned on them. We're going to do all three. The third one will certainly be dependent on how the first two go.
All right, you get an easy question to end this interview right here, and you got about 30 seconds to answer it here. So how are you enjoying being Senate President? Is it more headaches than you thought it was going to be? You don't have any gray hair, so it's not aging you, at least. What maybe in the beard it's
right,
aging
it's a little bit. I'm really enjoying it. I really just enjoy getting to work with every one of my colleagues. I mean, so many good quality new members. I come to think of, like Matt Stone started off yesterday just talking about what a privilege it is to be a state senator. When he's saying that, like, you just remember just what a privilege it is to get to work with these guys and help them be successful. And I'm enjoying it. Just watching Senator Breanne Davis just kill it on this education bill. She spoke to the Republican caucus the other day, and when we were there, I was like, that's why she's leading on this issue. She's going to be great when she presents it to the people of Arkansas, and I'm excited about the future.
You didn't say Senator Ben Gilmore. I'm going to make sure. I'm going to make sure he knows you didn't say it. So I'm just kidding.
I'll pay for that.
All right, Senator Bart Hester, thank you so much. Always a pleasure to sit with you. Thank you for doing that. We're back with more right after this.